Here are the internet's 8 most terrifying urban legends, ranked from my point of view. Slenderman. Slenderman is a towering figure standing over 9 feet tall, with an unnaturally thin body that carries no reasonable weight, dressed in a neat black suit, his skin pale white and completely smooth. His face blank with no eyes, nose or mouth, and tentacle-like shapes sometimes emerge from his back. This figure was born on the Something Awful forum in 2009 during a photo manipulation contest run by a user named Eric Knudsen under the alias Victor Surge. Slenderman harms his victims by stalking and haunting them slowly until they suffer severe psychological breakdowns, and his targets are mostly children who later claim he ordered them to hurt others. A real case that shook the public happened in 2014 in Wisconsin when 2 young girls stabbed a classmate to prove themselves to this figure so they could live with him in his forest home. The unsettling detail people keep bringing up is that independent reports from different countries describe a similar figure long before that photo ever went viral online. To this day, no one can confirm whether this being is purely a digital creation or a representation of something that has existed for a very long time. The Rake. The Rake is a hairless humanoid creature standing around 4 feet tall while crawling with grayish pale skin, large sunken black eyes, a thin body, long claws on its fingers, and it moves by crawling like a wild animal in the dead of night. This story first spread widely on the 4chan forum in 2006, accompanied by a collection of accounts from different people who claim to have experienced the same thing separately in different locations. The Rake harms its victims by appearing near their beds at night, staring silently, and some accounts describe it clawing at the faces and necks of people who wake up screaming in terror. One of the oldest testimonies tells of a man who woke up feeling watched, saw the figure crouch at the foot of his bed, tilting its head slowly, then vanishing the moment the light was switched on. What makes this story stand apart is that many testimonies from different countries and different eras describe nearly identical physical traits, even though the witnesses never knew each other. To this day, no one knows for certain why this figure always chooses quiet nights and victims who are alone. Black-eyed children. The black-eyed children are figures of kids around 9 to 14 years old, with normal height and bodies like any other child except their eyes are entirely solid black, with no white at all. Their skin is pale, and they usually appear in pairs, asking to be let into someone's house or car. This story was first reported by journalist Brian Bethel in 1996 in Abilene, Texas, through an online post describing his own experience. The black-eyed children harm their victims by convincing them to open the door, and once let in, victims reportedly feel overwhelming fear, severe dizziness, and some have even disappeared without a trace afterward. Bethel's account describes 2 boys approaching his car in a dark parking lot asking for a ride, their voices sounding strange and forceful until he refused and drove off in terror. The unsettling detail that keeps showing up across different reports is that victims always feel a powerful urge to refuse the request, even though logically there is no clear reason to be afraid of children. To this day, people who claim to have encountered them still wonder why their instincts fought so hard against opening that door that night. Momo. Momo is a female figure with a head resembling a bird and chicken-like legs. Her eyes are huge and bulging outward. Her hair long, black and disheveled, her mouth stretched wide almost to her ears, and her body is extremely thin and unlike any normal human shape. This image actually originated from a sculpture created by Japanese artist Keisuke Iso, displayed at a Japanese art exhibition, but it became popular as a digital ghost on messaging apps in 2018. Momo harms her victims through threatening messages that push them to complete dangerous challenges step by step, and her targets are mostly children and teenagers who receive contact from a stranger claiming to be Momo on chat apps. The case that shook the internet worldwide started with parents in different countries reporting that their children received threatening messages from unknown numbers along with that horrifying face. What makes this phenomenon so strange is that the contact could reappear even after being blocked repeatedly by different victims in locations far apart from one another. To this day, it is still debated whether this was purely an online hoax or whether something actually used that sculpture's face for a hidden purpose, and no one knows who was really behind those messages. Bloody Mary. Bloody Mary is a female figure with a pale bluish face. Her eyes either empty or bleeding, her long hair tangled and covering part of her face, wearing a worn white dress. and she only appears to a mirror's reflection when summoned by a specific ritual. This legend has circulated since the early 20th century in America, and some versions link her to Queen Mary Tudor of England, who was nicknamed Bloody Mary for her cruelty in the past. Bloody Mary is believed to harm her victims by pulling them into the mirror or clawing at the faces of those who repeat her name over and over in front of a mirror in the dark, and her targets are usually teenagers performing this ritual as a dare. The story most often passed down describes a group of teenage girls lighting candles in a bathroom, then calling her name 13 times while facing the mirror and holding their breath in fear. The unsettling detail buried in the different versions of this story is that the number of times her name must be called varies from region to region, with some believing 3 times is enough while others insist it must be 100. To this day, teenagers around the world still play this game as a test of courage. Mothman. Mothman is a winged humanoid creature standing around 7 feet tall, its body covered in dark gray fur with a massive pair of bat-like wings and eyes that glow bright red even in total darkness. This legend was first reported by 2 young couples in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in November of 1966 as they drove through an old industrial site known as the TNT area. Mothman has never been recorded killing anyone directly, but its appearances are always linked to major disasters that follow, and it is seen as an omen of catastrophe for anyone who sees it, including the residents of Point Pleasant themselves. After that first report spread, dozens of other locals came forward describing sightings of a red-eyed figure flying alongside their cars at high speed down quiet nighttime roads. The unsettling detail that shook the town is that right after the wave of sightings stopped, the silver bridge connecting the town suddenly collapsed, killing dozens of people in an instant. To this day, the people of Point Pleasant still argue over whether that figure was mere coincidence or truly a warning from something far greater. La Llorona. La Llorona is a tall female figure in a long worn white gown, her face pale with hollow eyes, wet from crying, her long black hair damp and hanging loose. And she is always heard weeping and wailing near rivers or lakes at night. This legend comes from Mexican folklore dating back to the colonial era under Spain, and many versions trace its origin to a mother named Maria who drowned her own 2 children after a broken heart. La Llorona is believed to harm children who play alone near water at night, dragging them into the river as she continues wailing in search of a replacement for the children she lost. And her targets are almost always kids who wander unwatched. The most commonly passed down version of the story describes Maria overwhelmed with regret the moment after drowning her children, running along the riverbank screaming hysterically until she drowned herself while searching for them. The unsettling detail that keeps this story alive is that her crying reportedly sounds closer the farther away she actually is, as if distance and sound do not move in the same direction. To this day, parents in Mexico still warn their children not to go out near rivers at night. Backrooms. The backrooms is an endless space with faded yellow walls, damp, musty-smelling carpet, flickering fluorescent lights that never stop buzzing, an unnaturally low ceiling, and not a single door or window anywhere to be seen. This concept first spread to the 4chan image board in 2019 through a photo of an empty room posted with no explanation by an anonymous user. The backrooms is believed to trap anyone who accidentally nude-clips or slips outside the boundaries of normal reality, leaving victims wandering forever with nothing but endless footsteps and the constant hum of the lights. That first viral photo pushed thousands of people to add their own stories, with some claiming they experienced the sensation of being lost in that unfamiliar place even before the photo was ever uploaded. The unsettling detail that keeps this phenomenon growing is that everyone who shares their experience describes the room with nearly identical details, despite never having communicated with each other beforehand. To this day, online communities keep adding new levels to this mythology.